Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So I just finished up an activation where I actually had an issue with one of my keys out in the field. And so I figured I'd shoot a quick video just on field keys. I've shot key videos before, but I kind of want to sort of focus on field keys specifically and talk about some of the differences in some of these different keys I've got here on my desk and what you might want to look for in a field key. But let me start by saying that any key can be a field key. So I mean, up here I've got my normal keys that I use here in the shack. I've got a couple of bugs I swap out, right? This Vibroflex Champion. In fact, I plan on doing an activation with this sometime soon. My UR5 CDX and my W1 SFR Cootie, those could all be used in the field. They wouldn't be optimum field keys for a number of different reasons. They weigh a ton. They're kind of fragile. The finishes are kind of nice. So field keys usually have some pretty common characteristics. So I'll start over here on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll kind of work our way down the list here. And I'll talk about, you know, why I think this makes a good field key or a bad field key, pros and cons kind of things, as well as we'll talk a little bit about cost. So we're going to start with this guy right here. This is a Bagawa Expedition. Bagawa makes several different keys that I would consider field keys. This is the sort of the biggest key of the bunch. You've also got the Bagawa Traveler, which is a full-size key, but it's got feet that spread open. That's more of a travel type key than this is. This is a set it up on the table and forget it kind of key. There's also the Bagawa Adventure, which is a little bitty thing that can also come with a mount for like the ICOM or the ICOM 705, as well as the Alecraft radios. I don't have either of those keys. I've talked about this Expedition in the past. This key I kind of like for stationary use. When I'm going to set up for, let's say, the weekend, and I'm going to be at a picnic table or at a campsite all weekend long, I like to bring this key because it's a full-featured key. I mean, this is a high-end key, right? We're talking a $300 key here. It's heavy. It's magnetic return. It's got very good adjustability. It's very high quality. It's very nice to send on. Right, I mean, this is an extremely nice key. This is not the kind of key you want to take out the woods and beat on, probably. I mean, again, you could, but you probably wouldn't want to. But as far as, you know, full-size field keys are concerned, this is kind of what I'm going with. Generally, I don't take this in the field. When I do, like I said, I'm normally setting up for a while. From there, we've got our CW Morse Build aluminum key. This key I have a love-hate relationship with. When I first got it, this was the first real key that I got. And I liked it, and then I tried some other decent keys, and I was like, man, this thing isn't that great. If you watch, I've got a short on how to adjust this to make it feel good. The spring tension inside here is way too high, and even if you take the adjustment screw all the way out, it's still too high. So you can take the spring out and cut it and change the tension inside. I would strongly, if you have one of these keys and you don't like how it feels, I would strongly encourage you to do that. But this key is, I've got it on a steel base that it came with. All right, but this is, you can hold this in your hand also. This is some sort of carbon composite printed top, I forget what. It's better than their standard keys. And inside it is all aluminum. The paddles are built aluminum, the base is built aluminum. It is much higher quality than their other keys are. But again, it's very heavy when you first get these. This spring right here is way too stiff. If you take that spring out, cut a coil off it, put it back together, it's so much nicer to send on. This key is a pretty nice key, magnetic base, right? The one thing you'd have to watch out for with these CW Morse keys is if you bump these adjustment screws, it will send dits and dots. So you have to be careful how you hold these. But this one's actually quite nice to send on. The paddles feel really nice. Now that I've got the tension on this thing decent, it's actually a really nice key to send on. A little bit bigger and heavier than some of my other keys. This is sort of a key that I'll take a lot of times if I'm going to, again, set up for a while. I'll plop this on the steel base and send from, and then you'll see it'll slide around in there a little bit, but I'll send from this, and, you know, right on the table instead of holding it in my hand. So if I'm going to do that, I'm either bringing the Bagawa, or more than likely, I'm probably bringing this key. This actually lives in my vehicle all the time, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, keys you leave in your car. So let me get that out of the way. So here's a CW Morse iambic paddle. It's the same key as this, just all 3D printed parts. A lot cheaper. So this guy is about, I think these are 170 bucks, give or take. I think these are about 50. Okay, but everything on this is 3D printed. Now, interestingly enough, these keys the spring tension isn't too high. They feel pretty good from the factory. You'll see I did take the adjustment screw on the side out because it added a little bit too much tension to the equation. I can get the cover back on here. But again, same deal. You know, this one you can hold in your hand. This one you can get with magnets. I don't have magnets in the base of this one because I never intended to attach this to a magnetic base. I always intended to just send holding in my hand with this one. These don't feel super nice to send on, but they're not horrible, and they don't weigh much of anything. And if you broke this thing, I think they're like $49.99 or something like that. If it broke, it wouldn't be the end of the world, right? So if you broke this or left it in the woods by accident, it wouldn't be a big deal. This guy's 170 bucks. Like I said, you probably don't want to leave that in the woods, and you definitely don't want to leave that Bagawa in the woods, right? So if you're looking for sort of an inexpensive, halfway decent field key that's not going to break the bank, that feels decent, that, you know, gets the job done, this is a pretty good key. You can get these both in the dual paddle version, iambic version, as well as the single paddle version. So it depends on what flavor you like better, if you like single or dual paddles, or if you squeeze key, or if you know, things like that, you're going to want an iambic key. If you don't, single paddle might be the way to go. And you can actually, a lot of people send faster on a single paddle. Most of your really high speed QRQ guys send on a single paddle. You can also get these in cootie versions. You could actually make this into a cootie just by on the end of the cable using a mono adapter, and you could use this like a cootie, right? You could use it just like this. Same idea, built the same way as the other one. You know, it's a decent lightweight field key. Now, the thing you've got to be careful with these keys is if you leave them in your vehicle and it's hot, they're going to melt, all right? I've seen plenty of these things melted from people leaving them in their car, especially like this summer. A lot of places in the country, it's been, you know, 100 and something degrees for days on end. You leave this thing in your car, it's probably going to melt. So that's something to consider. If you're going to buy a 3D printed key and you're going to leave it in your vehicle and it's someplace where it gets real hot, make sure it's printed in something that isn't going to melt if you leave it in a hot car. Or buy something that isn't 3D printed. That would be my recommendation. But if you want a 3D printed key, pay attention to that, the material that it's made out of. So we've got our Attack TP3. This is the key I've been using a lot in the field lately. When I first got this key, I wasn't super keen on it. It is built amazingly well. This is extremely high quality. It's got very strong magnets on the bottom. The tolerances on this thing are amazing. I had some issues with how it was adjusted. Even after I got it adjusted up, I still wasn't sold on it. Now I've got it about exactly where I want it. I have noticed, I've said before, that these paddles are real short. If you look at the difference between, so let's take the CW Morse Build aluminum paddle compared to this Attack paddle, you can see the difference in the size of those paddles, right? So that's something you got to consider. I've actually found that when I hold this in my hand, if I sort of hold it more vertical in key, it's way better than trying to key horizontally. In fact, when I had this attached to a steel base and was trying to key on the table, I did not like it. Holding this in your hand and holding it more vertical, it is really nice to send on. So that's something to consider. If you're looking at this key and you're used to some bigger paddles, the paddle size on these might be a little bit of an issue, but that's how I got around it. Hold it more vertical, and it's a lot better. But this is an extremely high quality key. This is the highest quality field key I have here aside from that Bagawa. This thing is very light, it's very well built, it's very nice to send on, very expensive. So this is about the same price as that CW Morse Build aluminum key, is about 170 bucks. This is coming from Germany, so it takes a little bit to get. I will say this is a better key than this is. All right, this is made in the US. This Attack key is a better key. I like the paddle size on this key better, but virtually everything else about the key, this is a better key. If I had to pick a single field key, even with the shortcomings of this key and how much I didn't like it when I first got it, if I had to pick a single field key to use, it would be this key. You could also get the big brother of this, the Attack TP3, which is a little bigger. I'm considering buying one of those as well. That's got much bigger paddles, but it's a bigger key also. So from there, I've got my lightest, smallest set of paddles, which is my CW Morse N0SA paddles. I actually had an issue with this on my activation. It was sending just random weird dits and dahs on my mountain topper, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's this key on that radio or whether this key is having issues. I haven't tried it on any other radios yet. I've got to give it a shot and see if it's just that radio. If it is, I just know I can't use this key on that radio. I don't know why. But if you watch that video, you'll see that, now I don't know if this video will come out before or after that, but you'll see when it's my first activation with my mountain topper, and I tried this key and it didn't work out well, and I had to switch over to this guy. I always carry two of everything, 2 keys, 2 batteries, 2 antennas, I carry a spare rig with me because I've been bitten. So I carry 2 of everything. So I had this key and this key with me. I actually had 3 keys with me, 4 keys with me actually in the vehicle. I had that CW Morse Build aluminum key, and I had the next key I'm going to talk about, which I couldn't use on the mountain topper, but I switched right in the video. You'll see me do it from one key to the other. This key feels amazing to send on. Out of all of the portable keys, this one feels the nicest to send on, but it does have some issues. It is very, very small, so it's hard to hold on to. The other problem is all these exposed adjustment screws, you will bump them with your thumbs and your fingers when you're holding this thing trying to send, and it will send dits and dots that you didn't intend to send. So that's something you have to consider if you're going to use this key. It does come with some 3M Velcro type stuff that you can stick this down on something so you can send just with one hand, but I tend to hold my field keys in my hand, so I do have to really be cognizant of that when I'm using this key. I do have to hold it in such a way so I'm not bumping those adjustment screws. The other thing with this key is it does have a permanently attached cable, which might be a problem. If that cable fails in the field, you're out of a key unless you've got a backup. I'll talk about cables in a second. I've talked about this, the UC6UAA capacitive key for my KX2. This is my ultra backup, no moving parts. It weighs, I mean, this thing weighs almost nothing. If you've never sent on a capacitive key, though, they're a little weird to send on. I would not want something like this to be my primary key, but as a backup key, this gets the job done. They do make solid state keys also, which I'm interested in, but that's not really a field key. They're expensive and they're big and heavy. This is Elecraft specific, right? This won't work on any of their radio, but it is a field key that I have. The last field key I've got here was actually the first CW key I ever got when I first joined LICW. This was the key I bought, this little CW Morse printed circuit board straight key. And while this is not the greatest key in the world, it absolutely is adequate. I made my first QSO ever on this. I probably made my first couple hundred QSOs on this key. It's very light. It's decently rugged. It's easy to adjust. It feels fairly good to send on. There's no springs. It uses this little printed circuit board piece as the spring. It's kind of like a big leaf spring. If you're looking for a field straight key, there are quite a few. Bamatech makes a really nice one. CW Morse makes a bunch of them. There are quite a few of them. That's not really my forte. I don't generally send on a field key, send on a straight key in the field. But I did want to throw that in there just as food for thought. Now, real quick on cables, right? You've got options when it comes to audio cables for your keys. Sorry, I bumped the... this is one of the 3.5mm stereo cables that comes with the CW Morse keys. Well, it doesn't come with the order separately, but I got it from them. These are really nice cables. They're built well. They're fabric, which I really like. This one's straight on both ends. This one is fabric also, straight on one end, 90 degrees on the other. This is usually what I use on like my KX2 or my FX4CR, where I don't want to put a lot of strain on that jack. That 90 degrees is nice. And then in a lot of my kits, I'll also put these retractable cables in, right? Because these take up no space. They're very easy to wrap back up. I don't have to roll it up. You just, boom, done, right? So that's something you got to consider, is you're going to need a cable with your key as well, unless you've got something like this that's got an attached cable. So, like I said, what you use is kind of up to you. I mean, I'm not going to tell you which key to buy or which key not to buy, right? Some of these keys are better than others. None of them are bad necessarily. It kind of really depends on personal preference. Do you want a dual paddle iambic key? Do you want a single lever key? Do you want something big and heavy that you're going to put on a picnic table and not move around? Do you want something super light and super well built that you can throw in your pack, right? Do you want something that's ultra light but maybe has some compromises and a little weird? You know, like I said, you can use this guy with a steel base also. I can pop this off of here, put that guy on there, and I can send like this as well. You can get these keys with magnets as well and do the same thing. So, like I said, I just wanted to come in real quick and just talk briefly about field keys, because it is something that I think is important. Choosing a field key that is going to suit your operating style, your radio, right? I like to hike way out in the woods a lot of times, so I'm not carrying that. I'm not carrying this Bagawa out in the woods, right? If I'm going to get out of my truck, walk 20 feet and set up on a picnic table, sure. If I'm walking a couple miles into the woods, it's going to be one of these 3D printed keys or this Bamatech key. So hopefully that gave you some ideas just to kind of food for thought for choosing a field key. I obviously don't have every field key known to man here. There are lots and lots of options out there, lots of really good options out there. Do some research. If you get the chance to play with some of these keys, play with some of them, because they all feel different, and you may find that you really like how some of them feel and you really dislike how others feel. I will also say, though, give them a chance even if you're not a fan of them at first. Like I said, I wasn't a super big fan of this Attack key when I first got it. Now I absolutely love it. So with that being said, like I said, I hope that was informative. I'll be shooting some more videos on some other gear that I have. I'll also do... I'm going to do a guide to activating, I think. I've done one on hunting. In fact, that was my very first YouTube video. Well, my first ham radio YouTube video was a guide to hunting. I'm going to do a guide to activating, an activator's guide, and that'll be way more in depth. I'll talk about all sorts of things in that. So, with that being said, I don't want to bore you to death with all this stuff. So, like I said, if you're looking to choose a field key, do some research, pick something that fits your operating style. You may end up buying more than one key, right? I've got, as you can see, a whole slew of field keys. So, I think we'll call it for this one. I really appreciate everybody watching. Until the next one, 7-3.